All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, as everyone here knows, there's nothing I love more than a good history lesson. So when I saw the Chinese balloon, I could not help but get excited. I've always had a weird fascination with large balloons and their use by mankind over the years. Might be the only guy sad that the Hindenburg blew up and killed the chances of balloon travel. Who gets nostalgic of how awesome it looked in Indiana Jones? So with that said, I thought it would be fun to take a trip down memory lane and look at how balloons have been used in war and for spying throughout history. Before the aeroplane became ubiquitous in war, the balloon was the go-to for aerial surveillance. Surveillance from the air is obviously useful for understanding the position of enemy forces without having to send ground forces to determine where they are. Doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It's the technology that has always been the limiting factor. The French were the leaders in balloon technology and with aviation in general in the late 1800s and early 1900s, so it's not a surprise they're actually the first to use balloons in war. The first recorded use of a balloon took place in 1794 by French forces in the battle against Austria. Balloon was considered critical to French victory in the battle, and it was so important it led to the establishment of a French military department, which roughly translates to a company of aeronauts. The original balloon itself was tethered to the ground with ropes and cables, and, quote, would communicate with the ground with flag signals or by placing written messages in sandbags fitted with rings that would be slid down the cables. The first use reportedly stunned the French because it allowed them to see a distance of 18 miles through the use of a telescope, and it let them get a clearer picture of the battlefield before the attack. In fact, one of the commanding generals at the Battle of Flers stayed in the air for the entire battle and directed it with messages sent down from the balloon for 10 hours. The balloon also had a significant moral effect on the Austrian enemy, who, quote, feared the balloon and looked upon it as an agent of the devil allied to the French Republic. The balloon was then quickly noticed as a critical tool. In warfare, it appeared next in major conflagration here in the United States, the American Civil War. It saw the next major organized deployment of recon balloons by the Union Army after a balloon technician personally convinced President Lincoln of their utility. 7 balloons in total were deployed by the Union during the war. None were ever shot down, though the general utility was questioned. By 1863, they were more a novelty than a critical military necessity. They didn't really explode on the scene again until World War I, when the great European powers were all fascinated by big developments in manned flight. Balloons, by this point, were able to reach some 3,000 to 6,000 feet and were much more useful at being able to spot enemy artillery positions. And in fact, what's reminiscent of today, some of the first use of planes were actually used to shoot down enemy balloons. Balloon operator was considered a very dangerous job because enemy fire was able to reach them, and they were equipped with parachutes. But it was World War II where things got really interesting. In one of those since forgotten but extraordinary moments, the only people to die in the continental United States during the Second World War was from an attack were 6 citizens of Oregon on a picnic, including some children, who encountered a Japanese balloon laden with bombs. The Japanese sent up nearly 9,000 balloons to drift over the U.S. in the hopes that they would cause mass panic and casualties. They were largely unsuccessful, luckily. So you might think that was the last of balloons, but actually they have been used by great powers since then in all conflicts, including by the U.S. in Iraq and Afghanistan. In fact, in Afghanistan, they became such a potent symbol of American oppression by villagers who found the idea of constantly being spied on very obtrusive. So you might ask, why even use a balloon in the age of satellites? Well, the U.S. Air Force put out a paper in 2009 that described why balloons are still used. They can stay above a target for much longer than a satellite, they're easier to retrieve, orders of magnitude cheaper to launch, they can scan more territory from a lower altitude. In fact, balloons are seen as so critical even today that the U.S. Air Force just a few months ago established a new program to use them against China and Russia. The new program, which is known as Cold Star, or the Covert Long-Dwell Stratospheric Architecture Program, is similar to the Chinese one. It deploys stratospheric balloons between 60 and 90,000 feet for global surveillance. In 2023, we are scheduled to spend some $30 million on balloon technology. Balloons are seen as one of the first lines of defense against hypersonic missiles, which move in an irregular manner and have posed a nightmare to missile defense planning capabilities. So this actually gives us an insight into the Chinese spy balloon. Many have asked, why is this balloon being used in the first place in the age of spy satellites? It especially makes sense that the Chinese balloon was deployed over one of those 3 U.S. bases, which house intercontinental ballistic missile programs, and in a time when we are looking to compete with Russia and China in the development of hypersonic missiles. In fact, my biggest takeaway in research for this piece is that the balloon isn't nearly as crazy or as rudimentary as our first initial impression may be. My bigger takeaway is a joyful one. For all the advances that we have made as society, sometimes the simplest technology is the best and the most reliable. Nothing better than putting gas in a balloon and going up. Maybe my dreams of balloon travel are not dead after all. So, pretty crazy, right? Because everybody's like, why are you still...
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.